Okay, so we are going to begin on the mat. I'm going to give you options. So we are going to do some heart opening. So I want to start you on a really relaxing but heart opening stretch. So if you have two blocks, you could take your blocks like so. And if you have a bolster, this is not a bolster, this is just a couch pillow. What I would suggest you do is lean against that and then find the other block so that your head rests on that block. And then you could take a butterfly or you could extend your legs. So this is the more gentle option. If you haven't got this, or if you'd like something a little bit more intense, you can bring that block on its edge and the other block on its low edge, and then bring that, only if you have a foam block, please don't do this on wooden blocks, it will not feel good on your spine. And you could come to here. This sometimes is too much for people, so you could lower that block all the way to the flat side and then come to here, okay? So all of them are doing the same thing of opening up your chest and your shoulders, and if you wanted, some people don't mind their head coming down like so. So it's a supported fish pose, essentially, is what you're doing, okay? So you pick what is comfortable for you. I'm gonna come back up on this level. Get yourself situated. You definitely want to be comfortable. It shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, when do we come out of this? It should feel nice. Release your shoulders down. Again, legs extend, or you could fold your legs in, coming to a butterfly. Palms can be up or palms can be down. And then close your eyes and begin taking some deep breaths. So really feeling your ribs expand here. They're nice and open. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the nose. Deep breathing. Can you breathe all the way into the belly? And of course, if you had nothing, if you have no blocks, no pillows, just lying on your back is fine. Again, option to come to butterfly with the soles of your feet together. Arms down by your side, or you could cactus your arms if you're not on anything. If you're just on the mat, bring your arms to cactus. And that will help really open your shoulders and your chest that way. Plenty of options. And begin to release, feeling yourself grow heavy in the mat, and also beginning to feel that openness of the chest, of the shoulders, of the ribs, of the abdomen. Long inhales, slow exhales. And see if you can allow that breath to steady. Maybe the inhales are the same length as the exhales. Maybe the exhales are a little bit longer. But find a rhythm, find an evenness. So if you are up on something, you just want to kind of gently come out of this. So if legs are in butterfly, maybe undo that first. You can draw the knees up. And rather than trying to sit up, if you just roll yourself to the side, that's going to be a more gentle way to come down out of this. And then go ahead and move those blocks or pillow or cushion, whatever you're using, out of the way. And bring yourself up. Let's just come to a seated position in butterfly. Let those shoulders drop down, sit up nice and tall. And then just forward fold to kind of counterpose that openness we were just doing. Let the head drop down. Now feeling a stretch in your back. And bringing yourself up. All right. So, hi Joelle. Go ahead and take a seat with your legs extended in front of you so they can be like separated just a little bit so you have a bit more of a base. If you're too close together, you just are a little bit unstable. So separate your legs just a little bit. Sitting up nice and tall. And if you find that you're tight in the back and you tend to slouch down, it's sometimes helpful to just put a little bit of a bend in your knees. We're not so much working on our hamstrings here. So if that feels more comfortable to you, that's fine. Equally, you could sit up on something. You could use a cushion or a block and elevate yourself, and that would help. I'm actually going to turn and face you. I feel like that will be easier for this. All right, so we're going to go side to side. So we're going to lift up and over to one side, and we're going to kind of float through this. So we're going to do this with movement. We're doing our lateral bend with movement. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. So I was saying that we're going to do heart openers today. I was feeling like the day after the elections and just whatever, it just would be nice to kind of open up the chest and the heart and the throat and the shoulders to let love out into the world. And if we need some love and affection, then that leaves us open to bring it back in one more time each side. Fair warning, usually, no, I shouldn't say usually, sometimes when you do heart openers, go ahead and pause that. I have done heart opening sequences and I finish and I feel like I am just walking on cloud nine. I just feel very joyful. Other times, that same openness can stir up emotional feelings that maybe aren't joyful, maybe there's sadness. So just be open to that, and if at any point you feel like, wow, it's just, there's a lot going on there, just come to child's pose, come to a safe posture where you're more emotionally protected. But if you're just feeling joy, then go ahead and let that open up. Go ahead and bring those arms out to the side, still sitting up nice and tall. And we're going to just twist to one side and twist to the other. If your arms get tired, your shoulders get tired, you can do this with hands at heart center. That's totally fine. Inhale and exhale. Just really working that spine. This is also doing some abdominal work here. Exhale as you twist. Inhale back to center. And let's go one more time each side. I'm just at the wall, so it's hard for me to keep my arms extended. And come back to center. And release those arms down. And we'll do one more stretch from here, which is a Pilates stretch. I think it'll be easier if I run this way for you. So we're going to be taking, it's called the saw. It's you take opposite finger towards opposite toe, and then we stretch 3 times on the exhale. I will encourage you to blow out through your lips with this one, and inhale through the nose and an exhale through the lips. But if that feels weird, just go ahead and breathe out through your nose normally. So we inhale, and then twist opposite pinky to opposite toe as you blow out. And stretch. Inhale back to center, exhale other side. Inhale back to center, ear towards the knee, exhale. Nice and long and slow. It should be quite a relaxing breath to exhale slowly through the mouth like that. And you could be moving more slowly than me. You could be moving more quickly than me. Finishing this up, finishing on the opposite side from where you started, and then working your way back to center. Okay, and our final stretch we're going to do here is just a flowing forward fold, Paschimottanasana. So we're going to inhale, exhale to reach forward, drag the fingertips back as you inhale again, grow tall, and exhale to fold. Inhale to grow tall, exhale to fold. One more time, inhale, and this time as you fold, go ahead and just release. And let yourself hang out. Again, if knees are bent, if you need to modify that way, that's totally fine. Take a couple deep breaths, breathing into that back body. If you want, holding on to feet, ankles, or calves, you can deepen that a little bit if you feel like that would feel good. And then bring yourself up. Great, come over onto hands and knees. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. So just like we did actually during Monday's practice, we're going to do cow pat and hold each position. So starting at the base of the spine, pressing that tailbone down, pelvis drops down, ribs and chest start to lift, shoulders pull back, and gaze lifts to just neutral really. And hold here for a couple of breaths. Try not to lock the elbows, which is hard for me. And then whenever you next exhale, pull that pelvis under, pull the belly button up, arching through, pressing into the hands, spread the shoulder blades, drop the chin and look at the belly button, and hold there for a couple of breaths. Really see if you can expand that back. And then again, inhaling. Holding cow for a couple of breaths. Next time you exhale, finding cat. Holding cat for a couple of breaths. And now a few times moving breath with movement, so a little bit faster. Your breath doesn't go any faster. See if you can keep the same breath, but then rather than holding cow and cat, go ahead and let it flow through, inhaling and exhaling. And then the next time, whenever you get there, come up to your cat and then release down, sitting down into child's pose for a moment. Let your arms reach forward, let your head find the mat. Stretch the arms forward here, active stretch through the shoulders. Take a couple of breaths in and out. Coming back up onto hands and knees. Move those hands back so they're underneath the shoulders. We're going to come to modified plank, but in order to do so, come up onto your toes first in full plank and then drop your knees so that you're at an angle. So hands are under shoulders, but knees are back from hips. Belly button is in, and we don't want an arch in the spine. So pull that belly button in, elongate the spine, and your gaze is out in front of you somewhere. It's not way out there, but it's not at your fingertips. It's just neutral spine always. Contracting the gluteal muscles. All right, so we're going to do our flowing, slow, modified chaturanga, your breath, your movement. So bend the elbows, lowering down, really exaggerate, bringing the chest to the floor. The chin literally comes to the floor. The hips press into the floor. We lift up to a baby cobra, and then we exhale back to our child's pose. As soon as we inhale, we rise back up to that modified plank. Exhale to lower down. Inhale, press up to baby cobra. Exhale, back to your child's pose. So again, see if you can move this flowing at your breath pace. Maybe you don't go as slowly down to the mat in that chaturanga as me. That takes time to build that strength. That's fine. This is a great way to practice that really, really hard move of chaturanga. This is a good way to start to build the strength. Go ahead and do one more round wherever you are, and when you finish that round, hang out in child's pose until we catch up. And then from child's pose, just transitioning to puppy pose, so pulling the toes under, reaching the arms out in front of you, pulling the hips back, slightly different stretch. Now the spine is elongated. Good, and then rising up one more time and lowering that all the way down to the mat. Okay, so from here, bringing the hands right underneath the shoulders, we're going to do, again, breath with movement. Feet are going to be squeezing together, pressing down into the mat, and we're going to start to build some strength in the low back while also beginning to open up that chest a bit more. So hands are actually going to hover right over the mat. Elbows are squeezing by the sides. Gluteal muscles contract. As you inhale, you lift without using your hands as much as you can. And then exhale. Back down. Inhale to lift up, squeezing the glutes. Exhale to release. Now, to make it go deeper, we're going to inhale. When you can't lift up anymore, then press into your hands. Come up as high as you want into cobra. Exhale, release. And when you're able, let those hands lift up again. Inhale, lift. Press into the mat. Press up to cobra. Exhale, release. And let go of the hands to come all the way down. Let's do two more. Inhale to press up. Nice and controlled. Exhale to release. Last time, inhale to press up. Exhale to release. Good. Release your hands down by your side. Turn your head and look over one shoulder. Just rest your cheek on the mat, is what I was trying to say. Taking a breath here. Good. Bring your head back to center. Bring your hands back under your shoulders, sliding out to Sphinx. Hands slide up. So Sphinx is, I find it pretty comfortable, but it is still active, right? So we're pressing into the palms, we're pressing into the forearms, we're actively peeling the belly away from the mat, still squeezing the glutes to protect the low back. Pull the chest and shoulders, like shoulders back to open up the chest, and gazes straight forward. Take a couple of nice deep breaths here. Inhaling and exhaling. Good, and then slowly release that down, turning your head to the opposite cheek. Release your arms back down by your side. Turn and look over that other shoulder, pausing there for a moment. And then slide the hands back under the shoulders. Push yourself up. Find yourself back on all fours. We are going to do one we've done before here, which is a twist, and then a twist the opposite direction. So I'm going to leave right hand on the mat and work with left arm first. You do whatever one you want to do first. First option is the hand goes behind the head. Inhale, exhale to twist up. Inhale, exhale to come down, arm reaches through, hovers above the mat, and then we do it again. Option 2 is to extend the arm as you twist, and then extend and reach. So you decide. Hand behind the head, exhale to twist, inhale through center, exhale, thread the needle. Last time, exhale to twist. Inhale, exhale. When you thread the needle, release that arm on the mat. So whatever arm you have extended under the other arm, turn that cheek onto the mat. So left arm is extended, left temple, left cheek is on the mat. And then if you want, extend the other arm straight out in front of you. And then pull your hips so they're square. They'll tend to push off to one side. See if you can pull them back so they're square. And take a couple of breaths here. It's a nice shoulder stretch. If it's uncomfortable, as with anything, come out of it. If this feels like pressure on your shoulders, we don't want that. And then slide that front hand back, placing it under you. Push yourself back up. Other hand on the mat, so you're back to all fours. And now we're going to do the other side. So inhale, first option, hand behind the head. Exhale to twist. Inhale, exhale, thread the needle. Inhale, exhale, second options to extend the arm. Inhale, exhale to twist. 2 more times. Inhale, exhale to twist. Inhale, exhale, thread the needle. Last time, this time when you get back down to the mat, go ahead and thread the needle, release that hand on the mat. Extend the opposite one in front. Cheek or temple on the mat, and again pull the hips back, see if you can square them off so they're not sticking out to the side, and take a few breaths here. Again, slide that front hand back, plant it under, pushing back up. We're going to just come up onto our knees. We're going to work towards camel, but this one's not going to be camel. This is just going to be a modification. So knees are right under our hips, standing nice and tall, belly button in, shoulders down and away. Good. Bringing hands to hips, so you can either wrap your hands around your hips, you could bring your fingertips so they're pointing down, or your fingertips so they're pointing up. I'll do it this way, just for something different. I don't usually do it this way. Contract your gluteal muscles, contract your quadricep muscles, push the hips forward with the hands, pull the elbows towards one another, pull the shoulders back, and then start to tilt the gaze up towards the sky, and that's it. Don't go any further back. You're really supporting your low back with your hands, and again, you can try different positions if you like to wrap them around. Inhale, exhale. Good, and releasing that. Bring the hands into the mat. Curl the toes under. You can just go back to child's pose if you prefer, or if you'd like to come up. We won't do a lot of down dogs tonight, promise. But if you'd like to go ahead and come up to one down dog, you can do that. If you're in down dog, nod your head yes. Shake your head no. Good. Everybody find low lunge with the right foot forward, runner's lunge, and then release that back knee onto the mat. Bring hands behind the knee, sitting nice and tall. So you're lifting through the chest and shoulders, again, pulling shoulders down and back, and then we're going to drive forward. So hinging forward. And then if you're stable, take the hands off the knee, bring the hands behind the back, clasping them together. We'll be visiting this a few times tonight. Pull the hands down, pull the shoulders back gently, and again, open the gaze towards the sky. If you start to wobble and fall over, just bring your gaze back to neutral. Anytime we look up, it tends to challenge your balance. Take a deep breath. Good. And releasing that. Curl that toe under, push back up to the runner's lunge, and then push all the way up to a high lunge, hands at heart center. Find your balance. Extending the arms up. Shoulders down and back. Chest opening. Again, option to bring the gaze up towards the ceiling to challenge yourself. And then we're going to twist this to the right. So right arm's going to shoot back. Left arm's going to shoot forward. Nice deep bend in the front knee. And then opening up, bringing the left palm up. Right palm goes down. Opening up through the left side body. Take a couple of deep breaths here. Good, and then cartwheel that hand down to the mat, step the right foot back, drop down onto knees, and lower all the way down to the mat. Bringing hands behind the back, just like we just did, clasping them together. Pull the hands back, lift the chest, lift the shoulders, squeeze the shoulder blades together, lifting up as high as is comfortable. And then see if you can start to lift the hands off the back. Taking a couple of breaths. And release that. So we're going to do the same series again. So hands under shoulders. Your option if you go to child's pose or if you want to come up to another downward facing dog. You decide what's right for you. Again, we won't do tons of these tonight. It's a little bit easier to get to the lunge, but you can come to child's pose all fours and get to the lunge that way too. No worries. And this time stepping the left foot forward, finding your lunge, and then releasing the right knee down. Rising up, hands behind the front knee, hinging forward. So this is focused on the hip flexor, but then as we begin to lift out of our hips, open the chest and shoulders, we begin to open here, and then again, if you want to bring the hands behind the back, clasping them together, gazing up. If you've ever done yoga outside, if you look up, it's super hard to balance because you have nothing to focus on. It's like infinity. Looking in the ceiling is a little bit easier, but it's still much harder than looking in front of you. So anytime you lose your balance, find that drishti point in front of you. Good, releasing that. Pressing into the hands, curling the toes under, pushing all the way up, finding your balance in your high lunge. And then once you're stable, extending those arms, pushing through the back heel. Lifting up, option to look up towards the sky. And then twisting this towards the front knee. Left arm shoots back, right arm shoots forward. Exalted warrior. One of my favorites, y'all know we do this a lot. Flip the front palm up, back palm down. Inhale, exhale. So we're not pushing, no pressure back here in the back leg. Pushing that away, straightening that hamstring as much as possible. Good, cartwheel that down, but we're actually going to step the back foot forward, coming to the top of the mat, hanging over in your forward fold. Taking a couple of breaths. Sliding the hands halfway up the shins, finding Ardha Uttanasana, pulling shoulders back, pulling belly button in, flat back lift. And forward fold again. Bend the knees, rising up into chair. Option to bring hands to heart center or arms to extend. Sitting nice and low, knees over ankles. See if you can lift your chest here. So this is still kind of part of our heart opening sequence because our chest is really forward here. So we don't want to be hunched over, which is why sometimes it's a lot to have arms extended. So if that is too much for you, just bring hands to heart center. And then rise all the way up. Press into the feet, extend the arms up overhead, interlace the fingers, stretch up. Good, bring the hands down, roll the shoulders a couple of times. Each direction. Excellent. All right, bring the hands behind the back, just like what we did similarly before. So either wrapping the hands around, bringing fingers up or bringing fingers down. Same option where we push the hips forward, contract the glutes, squeeze the quadriceps, push the hips forward, and then think about opening the chest towards the sky, thinking about pulling the elbows together, thinking about pulling the shoulders back. So it's what we would call a back bend, but you don't think, okay, I'm going to bend backwards. What you think is I'm going to open my chest towards the universe, and that creates the back bend. It could be really small. We could be right here. Don't overdo it. Good. And then release that, hinge forward, forward fold, let it go. Bend the knees so the spine rounds a bit. Bend the knees so the hands can find the mat. Step the left foot back so right foot stays forward. Rise back up and we're going to come to warrior one. So pivot and plant that back foot. Picking hand position. I'm going to start at heart center, but we're going to change this up in a moment. So if you have arms extended, that's fine. Gaze is forward, hips are forward, opening this left hip. And then we're going to do humble warrior. So once again, hands are going to come behind the back, squeezing them together, opening chest and shoulders, looking up towards the sky, a little bit of a back bend. And then we're going to fold over, let those arms come overhead, dropping our head in our humble warrior. Let those arms stretch, stretching through the shoulders. Good, releasing this down, hands find the mat, step the right foot back, dropping down onto knees, modified chaturanga, coming all the way to the mat. This time extending the arms out in front of you, squeezing the glutes, pressing the feet together, and then lifting up arms, and if you want, lifting up legs. Inhale and exhale for a couple of breaths. And releasing that down, slide the hands back under shoulders, push up and back, come to down dog, and then just walk your feet forward, coming back to the top of the mat, letting the head hang down, bending the knees. Good, sliding halfway up, straightening the legs, Ardha Uttanasana. And forward fold, releasing that, step the right foot back, pivoting the right foot, rising up to warrior one on this side. Again, hands can come to heart, or arms can extend. If you lose your balance, arms up overhead is harder. If you're here, you're more stable. If you like those arms up extended, that is your option. Bringing the hands behind the back, clasping them together, inhaling as you open the chest and shoulders towards the sky, gaze comes up, and then as you exhale, folding over in your humble warrior, stretching shoulders overhead. Good, and release that, hands find the mat, and then just step the right foot forward again, forward fold. Bend the knees, let the hips drop, and let's roll up the spine, one vertebra at a time, until you come all the way to standing. Okay, so our balance tonight will be our dancer pose. So I'm going to show it with the strap as a modification. So your most modified is going to be hand on the wall. And then if you want to try working on dancer with the strap, you're going to take the belt, loop it, hook your foot in there, and then you use your arm to lift up. And then extend the opposite arm. And then if you want to try the full version, the foot comes to the hand or the ankle comes to the hand, and then we lift up here. But this can be too much for you, so if you want to do it with the strap, you can do that. And coming back to center, releasing that down. Other side, so if you want to turn around, you can. If you liked the belt or the strap, you can do it again. You could also make a loop at the end, if that worked better. Hand come on hip to start, bending that knee, and then you just use that arm and you just lift, 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 up. Extend the opposite arm. It slipped out of my foot. There we go. Finding a point to focus on in front of you, and you can gently pull, lifting that foot. If you wanted to see if you could catch your foot, you could switch hands with the strap, and then be like, oh look, there's my foot. Maybe you found it. Ooh, as we lose our balance. Maybe that strap goes, and you lift up. Hip opener, hip flexor opener, chest opener, balance. Wherever you are, come out of that, shake it out, leave the strap handy if you liked it, because we'll use it down on the mat in a moment. Coming back to the top of the mat, take an inhale, inhale up, opening up chest and shoulders, exhale, fold, inhale, flat back left, exhale, release, stepping either foot back, followed by the other, dropping down onto knees, lowering all the way down, chest, chin, and hips. Inhale up to that cobra, baby cobra. Exhale, pressing back, coming to child's pose, and take a couple of breaths. Good, and coming back up onto knees, the second time doing camel. Another opportunity to use your blocks, those of you who are working on camel but aren't quite hands at feet yet, I will show you this modification. So, once again, hips over knees, not back here. Sitting up nice and tall. Pick your position to start, wrapping your hands around or coming up or down your waist, and then push the hips forward so they stay over the knees. Begin to pull the elbows together, begin to open the chest, begin to look towards the sky. Again, you could just stay here if you want. If you want to take this deeper, you reach one hand back and see if you can find the hand on the block. Now, what I often see at this point is people lean back here. You're not doing it, you're not back bending at that point, right? What we're trying to do is open the chest, pull the shoulders back, and also extend that low spine. So keep pushing the pelvis forward. The blocks could come to either level, or if you wanted, they could come all the way down. A really good way to do this is to practice against the wall and not let your pelvis lose contact with the wall. Take an inhale, take an exhale, wherever you are. And then next time you inhale, come on up and immediately come down into your child's pose to counter that, keeping knees together. Bringing arms down by your side, palms up. And letting yourself release. Coming back up, staying here on your knees if you're comfortable, and I want to do a seated twist from here to counterpose that back bend. So inhale, extending the arms upwards, twisting to either side, hand comes behind the body, finds the floor. If it's too high, find a block, pressing into your thigh, turning and looking over that back shoulder, making sure you're not leaning into the back hand, but you're sitting nice and tall. Back to center. Inhale, lift up. Exhale to twist. Again, hand could find the floor, or it might feel good to have a block or a pillow. Turning and looking over the back shoulder. Couple breaths into that low back. Good, and release that. All right, come back onto hands and knees. Come back into your full plank, and then drop down into that modified plank. Holding here just for a moment, taking a couple of breaths, and then bending the elbows and lowering all the way to the mat. So I want to do one side at a time, getting you ready to go into Dhanurasana, or bow pose. So we're going to try one leg at a time. So again, this is a time when the strap can be nice. We put the strap on the foot and we lift that up. The other hand just stays down, hand and foot on the mat. We're keeping the leg long. And we're lifting up here. And then if you want, you can start to press up. So it's a super modified version of our Dhanurasana. Releasing that. Option to try it with the hand on the foot. So reaching one hand back only, one leg back, lifting up, lifting that leg. So that opposite forearm is supporting you. Kicking into the hand, one side at a time. Releasing out of that, coming onto the other side. So option to do it with or without the strap the first time. I'm going to do it for demonstration purposes. Opposite forearm comes on the mat, bending that knee, and lifting it up. Gently pulling. So we're pulling. I'm actually actively creating tension here. And I'm also lifting a little bit. My hip is in the mat. My leg is lifting off. I'm just supporting myself in the front here. My elbows on the ground, on the mat. And releasing that. And then option to do without the strap, reaching the hand back, grabbing hold of that foot or ankle. Maybe lifting up, maybe kicking into the hands. And releasing that. Pushing up and back, child's pose, sitting back on the heels, stretching for a moment. Inhale and exhale. And we're going to come out one last time. Rising up. I'm going to take the strap off of me. Coming all the way down for full Dhanurasana, or at whatever point you get to. So bending the legs, bending the knees. Reaching the hands back and see where you are. Maybe we're here. See if you can lift the chest and shoulders, start pulling the shoulder blades together. And then if it's accessible, grab hold of your feet. If you're like squirming and fighting and hurting yourself, I wouldn't recommend that. Just keep lifting the chest and shoulders. That's awesome. If you grab the feet, then that's great. And maybe you lift the knees off the mat. Kicking into the hands, lifting the chest and shoulders. Taking a few breaths. Trying not to let the knees flare open if you're all the way up here. Trying to keep them at about hips distance. And releasing that. Go ahead and push up and come on over to here. We're going to do modified plank tabletop position, also super great for the shoulders and for the chest. So bending the knees, feet on the mat, hands right underneath the shoulders, fingertips pointing towards your feet, and we're going to push ourselves up into table. So the key here is see if you can really lift those hips, and once the hips are up, can you pull the shoulders back? I don't really like to drop the head back. I don't think that's great on the neck. So I encourage you to bring chin towards chest, which makes you use the muscles in your neck a bit, looking down your abs. But the key is squeezing the glutes, pushing the hips up so you're actually like a table, not like a hammock, and pull the shoulders down and away. Good, and then lower that down. Extend the legs in front of you. Option here for the strap. It loops around our feet. We grab hold of it and we hinge forward in our Paschimottanasana. If you're not using the strap, you're just hinging forward. Trying to keep the spine long right now, so it's not rounded over. You're still quite lifted. Chest is still lifted. Feet are flexed, whether you have the belt with a strap or not. Without it, we'd be here. Maybe you grab ankles or calves. Maybe you can reach toes. A couple of deep breaths in and out. Excellent. Bringing the hands behind the body again, just like they just were, pointing towards the toes. And just pull the elbows towards one another, pull the shoulders towards one another, and look up towards the sky. And take a deep breath in here. And long, slow breath out. And releasing this. Moving this aside, bending the knees again, lowering yourself all the way down onto the mat. Palms into the mat, shoulders into the mat, and then lift the hips, lift the pelvis. Keep the hips, the knees, hips distance apart. Press the shoulders into the mat so you really feel this expansion here. Take a couple inhales and exhales. And lower that down. Hug the right knee into the chest. Extend left leg long. Squeeze that knee in. Bend the left knee again. Cross the right leg over it. Shift the hips to the right and then drop down to the left. Cactus the arms and turn your head and look over the left shoulder. So you should be, or over the right shoulder, sorry. So you're on your left hip. Legs are crossed, dropping down. And again, as always, if this doesn't work, just uncross your legs and stack your knees. That's totally fine. I like the shoulder, the cactus position here for the shoulders. Continuing with that open chest, heart, shoulder, throat area. Taking a couple of deep breaths into the nose, out through the nose. And rolling back to center, recentering yourself on your mat. Extend your right leg long, hug your left knee into your body, give yourself a little hug. This should release that low back. As you'll notice, when we are doing heart and chest and throat and shoulder openers, we tend to be extending and bending our backs. So we want to make sure we release that. Bending the right knee, cross the left leg over it, lift the hips, shift them to the side so the right knee comes down, knees drop to the right, cactus the arms, and now you're looking over the left shoulder. Trying to bring that left shoulder in the mat. So again, if the shoulder's way up here, you might not be getting the full benefit. So I'd rather you uncross your legs, stack your knees, put them on a block, and then you'll get a nice twist, which is always a good counter pose when we've been doing those back extensions, back bends, people call them, but strictly speaking, we think of them as extensions. The counter poses for them are always twists to release that. So if you do a back bend like that, try to make sure you counter pose it by doing the forward bends like forward fold and child's pose, and also any of the twists. Good, and release that. Coming back to center. If you have a block, you can just, if you don't have a block, you can come to your hands, but if you have a block, go ahead and put that under your low back. We're just going to come legs straight up as an inversion here, and I'm going to offer you cactus again to open the chest and shoulders. It feels really good here. The only reason for the block is that it just makes your life easier to keep your legs up. You could do this against the wall, you could do this with a pillow, you could do this with hands under your glutes to support you. Any of those would be fine. And take a couple of nice long deep breaths here. Letting the blood drain from the feet and the ankles. And this is considered a more moderate, modified inversion, so some of the contraindications that you have with your shoulder stand and headstands are not usually here with this. Most people can do this, but as with anything, if you feel dizzy or lightheaded, that's not a good look. So come out of it. Of course, as always, if you want, you could open those legs. If you wanted to stretch through the inner thighs. I don't really have enough room at the wall. Couple more deep breaths in through the nose, letting it slowly out. If you don't have a block and you're tired because you're holding your legs up, you can also just bend your knees and hug knees to chest. Because when you don't have a block, you actually have to work a lot harder to keep your legs up. All right, so if you are on a block, go ahead and lift yourself off of that. Everybody come and give yourself a little hug, give yourself a little rock from side to side. So we're gonna come to a version without the block of what we started with, or some of you might have started, which is fish pose. So extend your legs long. One of the options I gave you with the blocks earlier was a restorative version of this. So bring your hands under your body. Both legs are long, fingertips are reaching for your toes, and pull your shoulders really under your body. So your head is looking straight up towards the ceiling and you're really opening up. So this is our modified fish, but actually if you're really working those shoulders under you, you'll feel very open, and it's actually it can be a comfortable posture. I'm not saying it is. Different people have different ideas of comfort, but it's not quite as intense as the full fish pose. So maybe just enjoy this for a few breaths. And then if and only if you want to take this up to the more traditional fish, you're going to be up on your forearms, open up the chest and shoulders, and the head drops down. Make sure your head finds the mat. If your head does not find the mat, stick a block back there and let your head find a block. You don't want your head just hanging. And now you'll notice the chest and shoulders and throat are opening even more if you've come to this version. There's of course even deeper versions of this, which we will not get into. But take some really nice, long, deep breaths wherever you are. If you're up here or if you're still down in the lower version, take a couple of deep breaths, really filling the chest, filling the ribs. And then slowly releasing out of whichever one you were in. Once again, bringing the knees in, giving yourself a little hug and a little rock. And finishing, as almost always, with happy baby, grabbing hold of ankles or feet. Give yourself a little rock from side to side. And then bring the soles of your feet together, lower your feet onto the mat. So I'm going to give you an option of a really open pose to take for part of your relaxation. So you're going to come to Baddha Konasana here, feet together. If that gets uncomfortable but you want to stay in Baddha Konasana, take blocks or pillows and you can support your legs, and then as you need you can move them, but this can sometimes feel better than if you're like me and your hips are quite tight and you have all this space. And then your option for your arms is you could come in a more closed position, hands on abdomen, hands on heart, is a really safe, protective, loving position. Or if you like the heart opening stuff we've been doing, you can bring your hands to cactus. So this is a super open pose. And as I was saying before, for some people it might be too much. So protect yourself as you need to if you want to bring that in. And we're going to just come into our savasana, or our relaxation I should say. So you can stay here, or if you want at any point you can release this and come to savasana if that is more comfortable with your legs extended and your arms by your side. So just closing your eyes. If you want to take a couple of deep breaths and let it go, you can do that. If you want to take a couple of breaths through your, exhaling through your mouth, if that feels good, you can do that. And make yourself comfortable growing heavy in the mat in whatever posture you chose for yourself. There is no right or wrong. And if any thoughts wander into your mind, try to let them go. Exhale, release them. And the next time you inhale, just breathe in peace. Breathe in love. Breathe in kindness. We're going to move into a breathing exercise. So it is your option. It's a calming breath that we're going to do tonight. So I invite you to stay where you are if you're comfortable there and you want to do your relaxing breath there. If you want to slowly come out of that and make your way to a seated position and do it as more of a meditative breath there, that is absolutely your choice. If you come to seated, you're going to come to any sort of a cross-legged position. Nice and slowly, just find yourself comfortable and then close your eyes. And if you want to stay where you were, then stay where you are. That's absolutely fine. And this is going to be an inhale for a 4 count and a long exhale for a 6 count, which is going to be really relaxing for you. So it's an inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose. let that breath settle in you for a moment. If you're seated, just stay there and feel the breath, feel the calmness. If you want to join us in a seated position, if you're lying down, you may do so. And take a moment to pass a glance over your body. Notice how you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. And then pressing your palms together, bringing your thumbs to your solar plexus, hands at heart center to your heart chakra, which is what we are focused on throughout the class tonight. I wish you love and peace. Om Shanti Om and Namaste.